So today I'm looking at another shot from the Vince Freeman session. I might do something different with this one. It's a little underexposed, deliberately so, because I much prefer to do that than blow out some highlights in the sky and not be able to get the detail back. So what I'm going to try and do is double up this image. This is completely flat out of camera at the moment. So if I press Command apostrophe, that makes a virtual copy of it in Lightroom. I'll just go back to the first one. If I adjust this for the sky until I'm happy with how the sky looks, and then the second one I'll adjust until I'm happy with the subject, and then I'll take them both into Photoshop and layer them and use the best of both. That's the theory. Let's see how it goes. So if I forget the subject for now and just look at the sky, what I'd like to do is try raising the clarity and the vibrance. You have to be really careful not to go over the top with making the sky too blue. I wonder if it would have any effect to bring the black down. That's quite cool. Might be a little much, but we'll go with it for now. You can even raise a contrast. That's obviously going to also add more blue to it. So that looks quite good. Okay, I think we bring the vibrance down a bit more. Okay, that's quite natural. Now just pop over to the second. So I didn't really do a lot there, but it's had quite an impact on the sky. Over to the second shot. Completely ignore the sky now and just concentrate on Vince's face. The first thing we need to do is bring the exposure up. So maybe 2/3 of a stop, and that's brought it up to pretty much there. Maybe go a little bit more. Now we can ignore this highlight warning this time because that's telling us the sky is overexposed. We're not going to be using the sky from this version of the image. Just make sure that the face is well lit. Now obviously if I was utterly brilliant, that would be how I'd exposed it in camera. It can be quite hard to see when you're outdoors on a sunny day exactly how bright the face is. So good old raw files in Lightroom, eh? That looks quite good. I'll just zoom back in again. I would put a bit more sharpness in there, I think. Let's try about 100. Bring the radius down. 0.6 is often a nice spot. And just bring up the masking so that the skin itself isn't sharpened, just the edges, the areas of detail that we want. It's pretty good. If we do a quick toggle on and off of the sharpening, we'll see what the effect is. That's without. It's quite soft, and that's just crisps it up nicely. Maybe bring the masking up even more. Okay, toggle off, on. That looks pretty good to me. There is an argument for doing the same thing again, in other words, another virtual copy for just these areas. But having said that, I think that I can do what needs to be done to these in Photoshop. Again, I might just make them extra gritty with a bit of high pass filter. So let's get them in Photoshop. So one of the great things here is we can highlight both images, and in this Edit In menu, when you right click, there's an option to open as layers in Photoshop. That's exactly what we want to do. They're going to be lined up perfectly, so that's one headache avoided. Okay, now I wonder whether it's better to drag the lighter one onto the top, and then we can just brush in some sky where we want to. So there's all sorts of ways we could do this. I think because we've got quite definite lines separating subject and background, we may be able to just get away with using the select tool. Wonder what happens. Let's see how well it's caught that. We zoom way in. It is hard to tell whether it's caught those hairs or not. So perhaps we can do a little bit of refine edge. This will give us an idea of what it has captured. Oh, now we can see it's missed a whole section of the metal work there. Very untechnical approach I've got, as you may well spot. But basically I'm using the smart radius and I'm just brushing over the areas that it missed. And I may just go around this hairline and see if it will pick up what we need it to. I think it probably has. Let's just trace this outline here. Hopefully that's given us a more natural transition between the selected and the non-selected area. No, it's still missing that section there. So I think we can probably fix that afterwards without any great difficulty. The most important thing is we've got all the sky detail that we need to. Possibly feather it just a tiny bit. Modify feather. Let's just say 1 pixel. Okay. And all I did then was press the backspace button, Command D to unselect, deselect should I say, and then have a little look at the bit we needed to repair. To be honest, it doesn't look like it needs repairing. Just need to close in on some of that hair and see how it did. It's not terrible. That's the version I want to use to affect the metalwork. So we'll duplicate that layer, Command J for duplicate. I don't know why it's Command J, it's certainly not that. So the trick that I used on the previous video might work just fine again here. Going a bit more extreme, that may be way too much. Only one way to find out. So we change that to overlay. That's pretty good actually. Off, on, off, on. Just added that little bit of edginess to it. If we put our background back in, and then of course move it back to the background, that all starts to make a little bit more sense. I'm tempted to, let's put that back at the top again. I'm tempted to do the same again. So I merge down, so those layers, if I take that one off, that work I just did on the metal work is now all on one layer. So I'll duplicate that layer again. We do exactly the same thing. The high pass. This time, who knows, try 20 pixels. Overlay. That's too much, isn't it? So soft light. Might be able to get away with that. Put the sky back in. Move that layer back down. Quite like that. Oops. Yeah. We don't want Vince's face to be like that, do we? So what we're going to need to do, I think, is decide if we're happy with the background, at least. Let's say we are. We flatten the image. Save it. Open this one. Clicking and dragging on this, dropping it on top of that one. There we now have it on its own layer. Bang, bang. Great. Change the order of the layers. Now I can just brush away. I can brush away where we don't want quite so much. That again. Layer mask. It's a white layer mask, so we're going to paint black to reveal what's underneath. 100%. Took away a bit of my hair there. Swap to white. Let that go back. It's got a bit more punch like that. Works well. At this point, I will flatten the image. There's a few other things I'd like to do to it. It's certainly got a fair bit of punch and grit now. I'd like this side to be more colourful. Duplicate the layer. Grab the saturation. Whack it up. Gosh, it's not going crazy. Also might be interesting to see if a different hue would help it. I want it to be quite green. Maybe that. Bit more saturation. Because the beauty is we can always use the opacity to correct that a little bit. If we go with the top. Okay. Before, after. Before, after. I might just sit here for a while going before, after, before, after. Let's just make sure that we haven't destroyed the tone colour of the skin with that little exercise. Right, the skin doesn't look quite so good now, so we've already got a mask there from the hue and saturation layer. So if I now just brush black over that mask, we can bring back the colour the skin was before we made that colour adjustment layer. There you go. I think that looks pretty good. So the next thing I'd like to do is flatten the image. Just going to save it again at this point. Saved as metal Vince for some reason. I'd like to darken down this area here. The t-shirt is a bit crumpled and there's a bit too much of man's belly going on for my liking. Sorry, Vince. So let's just zoom in here a little bit. Lots of bits too, aren't there, rather? Well, let's fix those while we're here. Spot healing brush tool, nice and small. Quick as you like. Now, although that's buttons, the highlights are just distracting, so they're gone. Okay, don't have to go too crazy because this whole section here I'm going to darken down, draw attention more to the face. Okay, so duplicate the layer. This time let's just change the blend mode of that layer to multiply. Straight away we lose all the detail in almost everything. So that's obviously quite a strong effect. Now if we take the opacity down just to a point where we think it's all about the face and not about the strange ladylike jumper that Vince has chosen. 40%. Can always take those creases out if they really upset me. Now we only want that to work in that one area, this area here. So this time we hold the Alt key when we press the Add Layer Mask. It brings us back to how it looked before we put the layer mask on, and now we can just brush in mask where we want it with white. I think I should probably take the opacity down a little bit so we can build up the effect and the transition won't look so obvious. Let's go for a fairly broad brush. Just start painting in. The hands are a bit more noticeable than they need to be. You might think that's quite dark, but maybe it's there that it needs more. It's the crumpledy bit, and I'll swap the mask by pressing X. Bring some of this back just a little bit. Okay, that's better. Flatten the image. Yeah, okay. Duplicate the layer again. This time I want to do my little trick with the vignette. To me this is a much more subtle vignette than the one Lightroom uses. I go to the Custom tab and the Vignette slider, take it down. It's got to be so careful because the sky, yeah, actually, why don't we take it right down and then brush it away from the sky after, because I like what that does with the rest of it. Let's do that. Okay, so we need a layer mask because we're now going to brush away that effect from the sky. Fairly brutal. I'm never very technical with my accuracy, but if it looks alright to my eye, that does for me. There we go. Flatten. Save. We don't need that version anymore, that can go. Don't need to save that. Close this one. Now if we go back to Lightroom, that was the original, just reset it. That was how it looked originally, flat out of camera, and that's how it looks now. So what I'm thinking as I look at it now in comparison with that is it's clearly more punchy. Did I go a bit too far? Which often happens. It's easy to get carried away. What we can do is open them both up in as layers in Photoshop. One. Two. Put the original copy at the bottom, and then we just have to select the top one. Click on the arrow. And now if we use the number keys, 9 makes it 90% opacity, 8, 80%, and so on. So we can go down until we get something that looks a little more just right to your eye. That's 60% opacity, so that's 60% of the new version, and obviously the other 40% is the old version. If I just toggle that layer off, that was the original. This is the photoshopped version, which to me looks about right. So I'm going to flatten that, and we now call that Metal Vince. So just close. That's as if we want to save. We save. Here we are again. So as a final thought, is it worth sharpening it up a wee bit more? Take the radius down to 0.5. Like it. One final thing, I should have got rid of the spot while I was in Photoshop, so open it up one more time. Command Alt 0 makes it 100% size. Try the spot removal tool. Done. Close. Save. Back to Lightroom. That's it. Hope you enjoyed. Hope it was helpful. Leave some comments. www.shaneyoungweddings.co.uk/blog. See you next time.